Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce our afternoon speaker, Nick Pinchuk. He is Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of SnapOn Incorporated. He was named President and Chief Operating Officer in April of 2007, when he was also appointed to SnapOn's board. He was elected Chief Executive Officer in December 2007 and subsequently Chairman in April of 2009. He joined SnapOn in 2002 as Senior Vice President and President of SnapOn's Worldwide Commercial and Industrial Group. Before SnapOn, Mr. Pinchuk was President, Global Refrigeration Operations, a multi-billion-dollar business unit of Carrier Corporation, which is a subsidiary of United Technologies Corporation. Prior to that, he served in executive, operational, planning, and financial capacities with Carrier and United Technologies. He was president of Asia Pacific Air Conditioning Operations, Global Vice President Strategic Planning, and Chief Financial Officer, Carrier International Corporations. Before that, he was with the Ford Motor Company, where he held various financial and engineering positions. He also served in Vietnam as an officer in the United States Army. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Nick Pinchuk.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for that kind, if aging introduction. It seemed like, I'll give you the people's resume. Born in Troy, New York, educated as an engineer. My first job was that of a high school football coach. Sometimes I think I should have stayed there. Would have been a lot more fun. Fought with the American Army in Vietnam, engineered for Ford, went to business school, went back to Ford, became finance, went to United Technologies, was the chief financial officer for its international business, became the strategic planning officer, and decided on the Asia Pacific strategy. And the president at that time said, if you think you know what you're doing, whippersnapper, why don't you go to Asia and do it? I thought I was going for 3 years. I ended up being there for 11, came back to the United States, ran the global refrigeration business. Then I got a call from SnapOn and said, we'd like to become more international. I showed up here, and then by luck and fortune and fate, I got my current job. It's been a fun trip. I think, let me just start by saying, I mean this sincerely, this is the most important audience I will ever present to, I will ever speak to. The world we know, the way we move, where we live, the energies we wield, the cities we raise, the dreams we dare, the hopes we hold, they're all shaped by work. And the efforts of those men and women doing those extraordinary tasks are enabled by technical education, by workforce development, by what you do. This is your Camelot moment. You should rise to it. Workforce development, the upskilling of the American workforce, is the seminal issue of our time, and I ain't kidding. You can see it written across the newspapers if you think hard enough about it. You know, you look at the newspapers and you realize that, at least if you have a chance to travel as I do, you realize that this is a great country. It's a great country, but we have challenges. And these challenges are rooted in questions. Among these questions are, what the heck is going on with the presidential election, right? I mean, you have to ask yourself, what is going on, right? That's one question. It's a serious and a funny question. Also, why is the middle class shrinking? Whatever happened to the American dream? Those are questions rooted in the idea of the workforce itself? These are important questions, and they really emanate from the idea that we are in a global competition for jobs, and our most important weapon in that competition is workforce development, technical education, vended by community colleges. This is your time. It has never been more important. What you do has never been more important. Only a few generations of people in any particular profession are actually asked to do something so important as you're being asked to do now. Deliver America from evil. This is true, and I believe you know it. Now, I'm from SnapOn. I'm just kind of a simple tool maker, really. And let me tell you a little bit about SnapOn. I think it informs why I'm here and what I'm doing and my perspective. SnapOn is an American company. It's been in business for 95 years. You can see its trucks. There are 3,476 of them. I know that number because it's written on my shorts, and I see it every day when I put them on. And they roll around the country. But it was founded in 1920 when the auto industry was just starting. There were 7.5 million vehicles on the road instead of 300 million that are there now. And nobody knew what a mechanic was going to do and what kind of status he would have, what kind of tools he would need. And comes an engineer from near here, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he gets an idea. Take 5 handles of different configurations, like an ellipse, a T, a crank, and put them together with 10 sockets of different dimensions and fashion them so they snap on interchangeably. It was a brilliant innovation, and it revolutionized tool sets all over, and we believe we follow that innovation, that tradition of innovation right to this day. Snap-on tools are innovative. You can ask anybody. They were of high quality. The steel was great, and you pick up a Snap-on tool today, and I think you will believe it is of high quality. But here's the thing. Here's the thing he did that was so brilliant and so relevant for today. He took those tools. He told his salesman to go into the shop and lay those tools out on green felt, as if they were as precious as surgeons' knives, implying that if the mechanic used these tools, he would declare to the world that he was doing something special, perhaps as special as a surgeon. And the idea that Snap-on tools are the outward sign of dignity and pride in a profession are at the core of what we do. It's a great company to work for. Now, you know, David Brooks in his book, The Road to Character, talks about Eisenhower saying that leaders should think about taking what they've inherited as a steward and expanding on it, building on it, standing on the shoulders of his predecessors, his or her predecessors. And in fact, that's what we do at Snap-on. We do just those things, innovation and quality and pride and dignity expanding to today. It's an important lesson for us. Now, we've expanded, so we're in 130 countries around the world. We have 28 factories in various countries, including 5 in China. But I'll tell you, those 3,476 trucks, 80% of what we sell off those trucks is made right here in America. And a hand tool is 50% labor. So never tell a Snap-on guy that you can't manufacture in the United States, because we understand the power of the American workforce and the value of being up close and personal. It's the one, to our customers, it's the one inalienable advantage American manufacturers have. And so we've gone all these years. And that's how we look at it. That's why we're here. That's why I'm here, because we understand the importance of the American workforce. We understand the need for them to be skilled, because it's the basis of our competition, of our position. And we understand that it's important that people have pride and dignity in their work. Jen Worth gave me a book called by Navasi, and it was called The Republic of Imagination. And it basically says, you get a job to have action, and you get skills to be able to take that action and take that opportunity and build it into something. And when you start doing that, when it works together, you feel like you have artistry. That's what Snap-on customers feel. Today, for example, you can ride through county fairs in upstate New York and see Snap-on jackets. You can go into garages and see Snap-on 95th anniversary boxes that sell for not small amounts of money, and people celebrate the fact that they want to be associated with Snap-on in their workplace. And then I get letters all the time. I get a letter from, here's a letter, Johnny Lewis from Ulysses, Pennsylvania. He says, I love Snap-on tools. My father introduced me to them when he took me to Roush's garage and taught me how to work on transmissions and engines. My father passed away several years ago, but I still work on engines and transmissions and lawnmowers and skidoos, anything with an engine or a mechanical device, any mechanical device. And I believe Snap-on tools are the best, and I am a Snap-on customer for life. Johnny Lewis learned from his father. Johnny Lewis works on engines. Johnny Lewis is a Snap-on customer for life, and Johnny Lewis of Ulysses, Pennsylvania is 10 years old. I get letters like this all the time. Pride and dignity in work. It's an important point, and it's something we may have lost. You know, I'm up here, I was telling your chair that I'm kind of nervous, and I am. The last time I went to talk to such an eminent group was a graduation. And everybody was amassed in all their academic robes, you know, and the hoods and so on, and the bonnets and everything. And it was quite a pageant. And I was up there talking, and boy, it didn't seem I was making much of an impact. And then, when I was finished speaking, the faculty and administration there in attendance rose en masse and by acclamation granted me an honorary degree, Master of Anesthesiology. Apparently, I had sedated the audience in record time for that. No wonder they didn't react. You know, you can read the headlines, and sometimes they're discouraging. I saw a headline that says, boy, I am disappointed. This is one of the presidential candidates. I'm disappointed that the United States is 46th among the developed world in terms of nurturing new businesses. I am disturbed that Snap-on is number 2. My favorite is the New York Times headline, "We're not number 1. We're not number 1." Well, you know, I'll tell you this. I don't know. I've been 130, we do business in 130 countries around the world. I visit many of them in the prosecution of my job, and I can tell you without equivocation, without question, without qualification, that the United States is the greatest country in the world. There is nothing to qualify that. Believe me. We have more comfort, greater range of motion, and more opportunities, even today, even with all our warts and our problems and so on, more than anyone else. We have 2 times the roads, the paved roads, as the number 2 country. China's coming up. China's going to start 54 new airports next year. And they may catch us. If at that rate they keep going, they'll get us in maybe a century. Right. And U.S. several years ago had 6 million people waiting for green cards. Now we have 15 million people. 7 times longer line than any other country in the world. So somehow those 15 million people think this is a pretty strong country. And why is it? You know, I like to think about this, and I ask you to think about it. We're quite a unique country. We're not special because we're from a particular place. Everybody in this room is from someplace else. I could go round and round and talk about where people are from, and we could all talk about where our ancestors came from. Not any one particular religion. All forms of worship are seen here. Not even a common geography. The map of the United States has changed as often as the stars. Why Americans are Americans, why all of us individually feel collectively Americans, is because we believe in things. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. and pursuit of happiness. This is why we're Americans. We believe in this and we're proud. And the pursuit of happiness has always meant have a life that you can keep your family warm and safe and dry and have pride and dignity. When you ask historians about America, they will tell you, when you ask them the question about why is it America has been ascendant among everyone, all countries in the New World, and probably most countries in the world, really, it's because Americans, broadly stated, the millions upon millions of Americans spread across the landscape, knew how to do things. We knew how to create things and make them work. This is what separated America. David Landis, unfortunately passed away, but a well-respected professor at Harvard, and Paul Kennedy in his Engineers of Victory said, yes, in World War II, veterans, my father was among them, sacrificed, but in fact, also, the engines of victory back here with people like Rosie the Riveter, that came out of West Virginia to work in the factories of Detroit, created the industrial subspace that delivered us. Just one little soundbite, for example. In the years 1939 to 1942, Japan and Germany produced 9,500 combat aircraft. In 1942 alone, Detroit produced 27,000. Rosie the Riveter and her sisters. Now, what's happened over time is we've established ourselves, and when we step back, you ask yourself, how did this process work? Why do we enjoy the society that we have? We have brilliant people, by the way. We had Lincoln and Washington, and we had people like Henry Ford and Edison. They had great ideas. But we also had the efforts of individuals, the everyday people who did extraordinary things. Consider the example of Henry Ford. Henry Ford had an idea, right? But he could never have brought the idea to fruition without amplifiers. And when it came time to bring his idea to fruition, he chose the greatest commercial amplifier of its day. That is the American workforce, dedicated, committed, energetic. And together, they created the American auto industry. Henry Ford got rich for it. And you could argue he should have. But along the way, millions and millions of people created lives of fulfillment and satisfaction. And that happened from sea to shining sea. Now, what's happened today? You ask yourself, what's going on? I don't understand why we're having troubles today. You can hear it in the presidential election. You hear all these things. And one of the things, if you're a businessman, you have maybe a little different perspective of the election. See, one of the things you understand about business is sometimes successful businesses, successful operations keep having success, but they forget why they're successful. They've lost their memory. I would suggest some of that is America. We've forgotten a little bit why it is we were successful. This is why we're having all these crazy stuff come out from the candidates. They're proposing a lot of different stuff. And maybe some of it is right, maybe some of it isn't. But in general, we are at sea because we've lost our memory of this. But David Landis and Paul Kennedy tell us it's the brilliance of the few and the efforts of the many. But why isn't it working today? Well, we don't have the ideas anymore. I'm sure that's it. Robert J. Gordon, who wrote The Rise and Fall of American Growth, right here in this city, he's from University of Chicago. I'm about to send Jen Worth and I, who's a great person, by the way. You're really lucky to have that dynamo called Jen Worth here as a senior vice president of workforce development. She and I exchange books every once in a while. I'm about to send her. She sent me a couple. I'm going to send one back. It's 800 pages. Let her chew on that one for a while. It's the rise and fall of the American growth. And he says, basically, we've run out of ideas. It's plateauing off. But I say baloney. If you look at the Nobel Prizes, and the 913 Nobel Prizes that have been granted since 2001, the United States has won 38%. UK's won like 13. Well, okay, like the Green Bay Packers, we built up a lead and we're cruising to victory, right? I don't think so. Since 2001, we haven't won 38%, we won 41%. So our lead is expanding. So it ain't ideas. I know what it is. You know what it is? It's the unions. The unions have screwed up the workplace. Really. Well, wrong. I think because we have union plants. We have union plants in Milwaukee and Algona, and we have non-union plants in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, right up the road, and Algona, Iowa, and Elizabeth, Tennessee is non-union, and Murphy, North Carolina, non-union. And when I walk those floors, when I walk the floors in North Carolina or Wisconsin or Tennessee or Iowa or Alabama or California, I see the same energy and dedication and commitment I imagine that Henry Ford would have seen. So what's wrong? Here's what's changed. The problem is, when you walk the floor in Minsk or Shanghai or Delhi or Santo Tomé in Argentina, you see the same capability and dedication and energy. Those so American of virtues are no longer differentiating. So that's why workforce development and upskilling the American workforce is so important. The world has always given jobs, has always awarded prosperity to the workforce broadly stated that is the most capable. This is true. You know, it pains me when I hear people say, and we can do this again. It pains me actually, as someone who superintends an operation that makes everything in the United States. It pains me when I hear people say, Chinese, you know, they're working awful hard. You know, those other guys, they're like, it's hard. We can't beat them. What are they talking about? When is it that Americans say that they can be beaten by somebody else? Our attitude, I think our attitude in our plants, and my attitude since I was a boy is, those other guys, we're going to crush their linemen, sack their quarterback, and walk off the field with their fans. I'm not kidding either. I'm not kidding. That's the attitude we have to have. Okay, so you cannot necessarily back off of this. So, and I say that technical education is the way forward on this. It's the way to eliminate this. So now I get to more questions. Why is the middle class shrinking? My answer is, no kidding, Sherlock. 30% of the manufacturing jobs have disappeared in the last 20 years. What's wrong with this picture? Well, those were the jobs that enabled the great middle of America to deliver us from evil, that engaged all these capable people. Those jobs aren't there anymore. We got to get them back. If you think about that, it's very clear. And what have we replaced them with? We've replaced them with financial services, the velocity of money. Now, the velocity of money is okay up to a point, but I tell you, it's very vulnerable. It's very vulnerable to bubbles. If you don't believe this, consider 1637 in the Netherlands. One tulip bulb. If you could have bought one tulip bulb for the same price you could have bought a home. In 1638, that tulip bulb was worth a drink of water. The first big crash. Sound familiar, by the way? You think that credit default swaps are much different than tulip bulbs? I don't think so, right? They don't have necessarily inherent value. By the way, if you depend on financial services or the velocity of money, it doesn't involve as many people. So you have a situation where a few people make a lot of money. I'm not saying they're wrong in making money. I'm just making the observation. A few people make a lot of money, and the other people don't because they're out of work. If you structure your economy like that. Now, some have said, if you read Derek Anderson's World Without Work in the Atlantic Monthly, some have said that's the way of the future. We can't compete. And, you know, if we can't compete, we're going to have a situation where the creative class makes a lot of money and they will subsidize everybody else. This doesn't sound like America to me. I like to think when Abraham Lincoln said, of the people, by the people, and for the people, he meant the economy of the people, by the people, and for the people. He meant a world of the people, by the people, and for the people, and it's always been our strength. So, that's the answer to that question. And what is the solution? Well, the solution is upskilling America, and the root of that solution are the people in this audience. That's why I'm so excited about being here. So I have some advice about how to deal with this. One is to match what you do to what's needed. There are books about this. Metro Revolution by Jennifer Bradley and Bruce Katz talks about the idea of nodules of improvement or prosperity around the country. Well, they're all rooted in a school. And the school can take leadership about that. And I believe corporations are willing to work with you on this. Certainly SnapOn has worked with people on this in our organization in the organization we joined called the National Coalition of Certification Centers. Brian Albrecht from Gateway Community College has been part of that. And I just met last night with Stephen and Linda Head from Lone Star, who has a focus on that. And Sherry Utash from the Wichita area Aviation College and a technical college, and Lee Lambert from Pima in Tucson, and a whole number of people in this audience who are doing that already. There are 256 members of the NC3, but I would encourage all of you to get involved in that, because calling in the airstrikes, matching the curriculum to what is needed is essential to doing this. And I think it can be done. And I think industry and government, I think, is willing to work with you. And it can be done location by location. This is one of the ways forward. Then there's another question. The other question is, whatever happened to the American dream? By the way, it was a song by MKTO last year. It made it up to number 24 in the top 100 in VH1. Very popular song, but I was kind of saddened by hearing this. And it has to do with this. Actually, it has to do with one of your own problems. You ask yourself, I believe enrollment is somewhat down in community colleges, somewhat. Not everywhere, but somewhat down. There's some pressure on enrollment. Well, I would suggest that part of the problem is the jobs I'm talking about, things like welding and aviation technician or aircraft mechanic or a machinist, they are viewed by society as the consolation prize of our society. It's why we have a skills gap. We have a skills gap. The National Association of Manufacturers say that there's 600 jobs that goes unfilled, and that's going to go to 2 million. You can ask yourself, and 67% of the people in the National Association of Manufacturers, the people who actually make choices on plants, say the number one criteria to locate a plant, to start prosperity, is the workforce itself. So filling that skills gap can be important. Now you could ask yourself, well, you could pay more and maybe you would fill the skills gap, but it doesn't seem to hold water, because there are jobs and skills, aviation tech or some welders and so on, that make as much as an engineer, and they don't come out of school with $35,000 worth of debt. They can get an education and come right out and roll. And so that really isn't it. It's the attraction associated with those professions. I think that's important for the people in this room to recognize that barrier. I'll give you a further example of this, is that when I spoke at the AFL-CIO, some people might call that enemy territory for a CEO of a company, but I don't really. And I spoke to those people, and I said to them, you know, there's a PR problem in terms of technical careers. And they kind of looked like, well, you know, that's not true. And then I said, how would you feel if your son or daughter, niece or nephew, told you they were going to be a car mechanic? And you could have heard a pin drop in that room, because they knew the answer. For the people in that room, this is what other people's kids do. Yet, these are the jobs that have delivered us from evil, have created the society we have. They are the efforts of the many. Now, the other thing about the American dream is we have lost the respect for where's the American dream going? We have lost the respect for the dignity of work. Now, there's another book, I'm full of books, Tyler Cohen's book called Average is Over, and he said the American dream is disappearing, but I say it's not. What it is we've redefined what we think it is. We think now that you got to be a CEO or a TV anchor or a college president or a physician or an attorney to achieve the American dream. That ain't it. It's never been it. It's always been, You have a job that keeps your family warm and safe and dry, and makes you feel like you have pride and dignity in what you do, and you can declare the dignity of what you do. We've changed that. We've changed. That's all changed. And we need to roll it back. You need to work to roll that back. So working on the optics, marketing the idea, it won't be, my advice, and again, I'm here to give advice. My advice I've said so far is to match your curriculum to the schools, to the companies, to actually generate activity. Because you want to make sure that people have jobs. The ultimate goal of education is not necessarily a degree, it's a fulfilling career. Degrees can be part of this. Booker T. Washington said this. Booker T. Washington, I think it was 1901, I read Up from Slavery when I was in high school, it was one of the readings. And he said, basically, we can educate our young people, I think he was talking about young Afro-American people in the South, in Latin and Greek, but it will not put them in a position to contribute to our society. Mene, Bea, Paleadio, Bea, Achille. First line of the Iliad. Arma varunque, ab Troia ad Roma, cano. First line of the Aeneid. Latin and Greek. Greek and Latin. I know this. They have fulfilled my life. They have made my life richer, but knowing that will get me maybe a stick of gum someplace. So I want to come back to say that the focus on technical education, in some ways, this is a battle for the soul of America. Is America going to be 4-year university headquarters where China sends us automobiles and we send them poetry? Or are we going to be a country that takes and therefore, by the way, make money or subsidize most life off the brilliance of the few? Or are we going to use our natural advantage, which has been the natural capability and aggressiveness and commitment and dedication of the American worker? Which are we going to do? I know which one I like, and I think will win for us. Now, there's a further problem, and it's this. Everyone will endorse this program. I can go to Washington and get anyone to say, technical education, community colleges, great. And we're making progress on this, I would say. The president put it in his speech, and I think put it in his, at least a year ago, speech, and we've had several programs come out of Washington, and the idea of free community colleges has been floated and promulgated and so on, and all those things are good, I think, great. But I want to caution, it's easy to endorse. A guy like me, I know this, no bad ideas ever come to me. You know that? I never get a bad idea. When an idea gets to my office, it's a good idea. All the wacko ideas have been wiped out before they show up in my office. No, it's true. It's true. So therefore, it's not important whether I can endorse something, because I can endorse everything that comes into the office because it's a good idea. Senators and congressmen and presidents, and maybe all of us to some extent, can do that. We can endorse things. The question is, do we really support it? Will we really act on it? And I would say the further question is, when I say that upskilling in the American workforce is the seminal issue of our time, do we really believe it? Do you believe it? Do I believe it? Well, I'll give you a little bit of thought on this, is corporate tax rate. Corporate tax rate. SnapOn, the corporate tax rate is goofed up to fare thee well. I might have said it a little differently when I was in Vietnam, but let's just take that. Okay, all right. So, all right, it is completely dysfunctional. And SnapOn pays 10 percentage points higher than its rivals because we manufacture in America. This is true. It's a penalty. But having said that, I still believe that if I have to choose between investment political capital in reducing the corporate tax rate and upskilling the American workforce, I choose upskilling the American workforce. Right, but do you choose it? You see, do you choose it over other social issues? If I tell you a political dynasty can only accomplish two things or one thing, what do you choose? You see, when things come in my office, everything's a good idea, and I can only accomplish one or two. So you have to ask yourself, do you choose? Do you believe that this is the most important thing? It's the seminal issue of our time and will deliver us from evil. And if you do, I hope you do, I have one more piece of advice. And that's this. You have to lean on your congressmen, our leaders, when you try to do it. You have to do that. And you have to, as I said, match and celebrate jobs. I would call that walking the talk. And then you have to talk the walk. There's a great, I'm not that familiar with the Christian Bible, but I know this one, 1 Corinthians 14th chapter, 8th verse. For if the trumpets sound uncertain, who will prepare for war? Be certain trumpets. Be certain trumpets. That's the best advice I can give this audience. Because the whole thing revolves about what you believe and how you will push it and market it and sell it. It goes all the way back to influencing the congressman and the president and the senators. It goes all the way back to influencing the students. Do you really believe that they are special people and going to deliver America? Do you really believe matching industry is important and getting industry involved with you? Be a certain trumpet. I try to be myself. That's my message. It is, this is an extraordinary country, no matter what the headlines say about we're not number one, we're not number one. We are number one. 15 million people cannot be wrong about this. You know, of course, there are questions. There are warts on the republic. There are injustices. But I'll tell you, they're always going to be there. There's always going to be some. We work hard to fix them. But that doesn't mean we want to feel like we aren't number one, because we are. And those, you know, we are in a competition that raises questions. And the questions are things like, why are the candidates saying this? Well, maybe they forgot what made us great, which is the workforce and being able to make things and the upskilling of America. You know, why is the middle class shrinking? Where has the American dream gone? All these questions, actually, are rooted in an idea that many people question the power of the American worker. They believe, looking forward, that the American worker is a question. I say the American worker is the answer, not the question. You see, that's where we come from. And that's what, if you walk away from this anyway, I want you to see that. And I want you to realize that the American worker is the answer, and community colleges, all of you, are the way to unlock its power. You are the secret to unlocking its power. This is your time. It's never been any stronger. You see, I see no path to American success in the future without your success. I see no path with regard to that. Because you see, if you don't succeed, if you are not able to upskill the American workforce, eventually around here, oil doesn't flow, vehicles don't roll, economies don't grow, cities don't rise, planes don't fly, dreams aren't dared, hopes aren't held, and I dare say freedom doesn't ring. This is an amazing country. You know, if you travel around a lot, you see it. It's the only country I know of where flags are flown every day, not just holidays. Flags are flown every day. You can go up and down throughout the landscape of America. You see flags flown every day. This is a place where when a color guard appears or jets fly over or the words, "The land of the free and the home of the brave," are sung, that nowhere do backs fail to straighten and eyes fail to moisten. And all of that has been created by the American workforce. All of that has been created by the American workforce. And that American workforce going forward at this time can only be engaged by what you do. You see, this is your Camelot moment. Rise to it. Thank you all very much. I enjoy being here. I really enjoyed it.